Dun, dun, dun. Oh. Stop. Hi, and welcome to the NOLAnerdcast Top 30 Games of the Last Generation. My name is Chris.
I'm Matthew.
And we're here for part 2 of the top 30 games of the Last Generation.
That being PS3, 360, and Wii.
Yes.
Alright, let's knock out the ground rules. Had one game per franchise, so with the first game we'll talk about, you can see how that might have been a sticking point.
A little bit.
It has to be a game that we played enough of to warrant a spot on the list, and because it is our list and not just an overall best of list, there will be some games that you are surprised to see, and there will be some games you're like, where is it? Why is it Metal Gear Solid 4 on the list? And that's because Chris hates Metal Gear Solid.
Wow. Not even close to true.
And then where's Metal Gear Solid 4 on the list, Chris?
Well, I don't know where you didn't fight for it.
Obviously,
you don't like Metal Gear.
I do.
If you do, you would have fought for it more than not at all.
so hard, Chris.
Okay, let's start with number 20. Halo 4 by consensus vote. And rock, paper, scissors.
By the magic of rock, paper, scissors.
The ancient covenant.
So, why is Halo 4 the best Halo, Chris?
Wow, maybe a little more enthusiasm as opposed to not at all.
Chris, why is Halo 4 the best Halo game?
Because once you got free of the... once you gotta get that cough taken care of.
Oh, sorry. Bullshit.
Once you get out of the
fact that Bungie didn't make it.
Yeah.
The multiplayer didn't last.
It doesn't matter.
Story was dumb.
No, it wasn't. It was better than the others.
Keep going.
You know what's dumb is a giant swamp thing talking to you throughout the game. That's dumb.
What was it? The Overmind?
Gravemind. Yeah. No, Halo 4 took away a lot of the trappings. It pushed the Xbox 360 to almost next-generation graphics.
That is true.
And it gave us another story in this universe, which no one thought was possible because it finished the fight last time. But whoopsie doodle, turns out there's more fight to be had.
Whoopsie doodle, we like money.
Yeah.
No,
and you know, I think more than anything else, it's the fact that they pushed the graphics so far in it that I think elevated everything else in it. Because the story I think is a hair better than the Halo 3, and I think gameplay wise it's not that different.
You talk about Far Cry, that's your game.
All right, we'll talk
Far
about
Cry Chisel.
Far Cry 3. So Far Cry started off kind of weird in being the benchmark of PC gaming in the early 2000s.
Yes, I remember that.
And then the consoles got their hands on it, and they went weird.
It was Far Cry was the benchmark until Crysis came out.
Yeah, so it got weird. Far Cry 2 tried to do something a little different with the malaria system, which is kind of funny to say out loud. What are you doing?
Keep going.
Okay.
Be natural.
So Far Cry 3 really took the open world concept that Ubisoft kind of developed with Assassin's Creed and the others, and it really made it their own by giving you this giant island filled with enemies that'll kill you and wildlife that'll kill you harder.
And Far Cry 3 came out
at the right time.
Made it just... I remember they had that opening trailer with the guy telling you about the definition of insanity.
Voz was a great film, and it is one of those things where it came at just the perfect time to capture everyone's attention. And they changed it so much from the previous ones that it revitalized the franchise.
And give us Blood Dragon.
Yo.
Alright, I'm going to talk about the next one, number 18.
Yeah.
The most Japanese... If you thought Infinite Undiscovery was a dumb name for a game, where do you get a load of Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch?
Well,
this is Studio Ghibli merging with Level 5 to make just a sublime RPG.
So this is a different type of Japanese than Infinite Undiscovery. So Infinite Undiscovery is preteens in belts where there shouldn't be belts, saving the moon.
So many pockets.
Saving the moon. Okay. And in this game, it's a Miyazaki film mixed with an RPG.
Form.
Yes.
It's basically, it mixes like Pokemon with a Miyazaki film. You are collecting monsters and training them and evolving them, and you go on this grandiose adventure to reunite a young boy with his dead mom.
Yeah,
and save a fantasy world in the process. It was so charming. The soundtrack was unbelievable. The graphics, it really was like playing through a Miyazaki film. And the battle system was a mix of turn-based and real-time, where you had to pick your options on the fly and swap between things. It was just, oh god, it was so good. Lost Odyssey. Now, if I may, Lost Odyssey came out and surprised everyone by being a 360 exclusive. Well, it was at that time where you thought like maybe Microsoft's really going to take over the Japanese market.
It was that time where they tried with Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey,
and Lost Odyssey. The reason it was so good, it shouldn't surprise anyone because it was by the original trilogy of people, the guys that did Chrono Trigger.
Yep.
The Music Man, the Sound Man, and the Art Man.
Wow. Nobuo Uematsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kira Toriyama. No, that was Blue Dragon. Point is, Lost Odyssey was amazing. Story was good. The graphics were incredible. The gameplay was tight. The story, it was just.
The story worked out really well because it took the bland kind of nothing protagonist and really fleshed him out in a way with the 1,000 Years of Dreams kind of stuff.
What
in a
would
way
you do
that
if you played as an immortal?
Yeah, in a way that doesn't like harm the story or make it seem a little cliche.
And agreed.
Yeah.
Moving on, Borderlands 2, one of the most perfect co-op games. And one of the first of several games that came out where when someone asks you if it was good and they should buy it, you have to ask them the question, are you going to play by yourself or do you plan on playing with friends?
Yes.
Because Borderlands, along with games like, say, Left 4 Dead and Army of Two and stuff, if you're not playing with friends, don't play.
Yeah. I played both ways, and there is some fun to be had playing by yourself, but it's infinitely more fun to play with friends.
Borderlands had an incredible sense of humor, had one of the best villains of this entire generation.
Handsome Jack.
Claptrap was hilarious. He's an acquired taste, but I loved him.
But you know, the idea of the first personization of the Diablo formula, where it's just loot and RPG kind of tropes, it worked out so perfect.
Next up is the actual best game of all time. Chris?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit about Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 2?
Kagebushin no Jutsu.
Hey Chris, if I was to say this was the greatest game of all time, would you believe it? Chris, it's so good. Alright, you know, this is fun because if we had done this show originally before you'd even started watching it, you would have been so hateful on it. But now that you actually like the show, you can't hate on the game.
Thanks for putting that on the internet.
Yep, that is a fact. No, this was a fighting game. It was the Naruto games supplanted Dragon Ball Z this generation and being like the best licensed fighting games. The PS2 generation was all about Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi. This time the Ultimate Ninja Storm games took over. It was fun. My friends and I got way into it. It's those fighting games that aren't the top tier, your Street Fighters and stuff.
They're not going to be on Evo.
They're not going to be at any world tournaments. They're not very well balanced, but damn if they're not fun.
Yeah.
And it looked identical to the show.
I was more impressed with the graphics than anything else, because it is very much like watching the show.
Next up is Infamous 2, set place in not New Orleans.
What's it called?
Numeray.
Yeah, so Infamous was kind of interesting because they were trying to make their own superhero game. Because, let's be real, superhero games were not very good before Infamous 1 came out. And it was kind of a surprise that it was so well received. And Infamous 2 took that...
It went into the bigger, better mentality of a sequel.
Yeah. And
more powers.
More powers, more kind of choices, a bigger threat with the Beast.
And just the changes to mobility, like the way you could just move vertically and horizontally quickly and rapidly.
And the increase in the amount of water as a hazard really made you have to plot out your moves.
Alright, ice powers or fire powers, what were your favorite?
Ice power had better mobility, fire power had better destruction.
Exactly. So man, it was just something so cool about shooting up on the ice pillar and flying and dropping. I don't know. Saints Row 4 is number 13 for some reason.
Stop. You didn't say it right.
I'm sorry.
It's Saints Row 4 President Game of the Year for 2014. Imagine there's a game that doesn't care about anything you do so long as you just have fun in it. And that's Saints Row the 4th. You know, you're in the Matrix, so you get superpowers. So go. Run fast and kick dudes in the dick until they fly in the air.
Could you do superpowered wrestling moves?
Yes. And you have a gun that shoots weaponized dubstep.
That is true. I remember. I actually have the dubstep gun.
And it's great. It's great all around. It's got a really fulfilling story, shockingly. And then there's a mission where you shoot poop at people. So I don't know what else to tell you. It was the game of the year for the year it came out. It's number one in my heart, but list.
Well, next up is another game we get to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some. I think there's a sequel coming out. Some people care. I don't know.
No one cares.
Why don't you talk a little bit about a little unknown indie game called Fallout 3?
When the Elder Scrolls came out with this new next-gen formula, everyone was like, yo, this is great. So Fallout came and it kind of perfected everything in a way that the Elder Scrolls never quite did. The world was a little more alive than in the Elder Scrolls, which is very static. Even Skyrim was still very static. But the world felt more alive. It felt like your actions had consequences to a point. And I thought it was just brilliant all around.
I never got into it. At that time, I had beaten Oblivion, but wasn't really huge into it. And then Fallout came out, and
the problem is, like, if you don't care for that style of game, like, there's nothing that can fix it.
Yeah.
It's if you played Oblivion, you were like, well, I don't like this. Then there's
not that I didn't like it.
There's nothing you can do.
Now, my question for you is, why 3 over New Vegas?
New Vegas was glitchy as hell. Game-breakingly glitchy in a lot of places. And while Fallout 3 is not perfect, as no open-world game is, it was at least functional for its time.
Okay. All right, then let's go with Ratchet & Clank Kraken Time at number 11. The pinnacle of the Ratchet & Clank franchise. Nolan North voiced a character, because at that time, who didn't he voice?
Who doesn't he voice now?
I don't know. Troy Baker took them all.
Took the claptrap job.
So it's like playing a Pixar movie. It's so good. The weapons are so inventive. I mean, if Saints Row 4 had a dubstep gun, this is the game that had a gun that shot disco balls and made you dance. Every one of the games featured a gun that transformed people into other animals that would explode. The humor in this game, with the just perfect gameplay, the action platformer genre, like it just perfected it. The story tied all the Ratchet & Clank games together and was grandiose and epic in a way that you wouldn't expect in a Ratchet & Clank game. The humor and writing were just so spot on, and it's just, there's been a couple since then, but Kraken Time is the pinnacle of the entire franchise. So
I think that's fair.
That's what's up. So to recap, numbers 20 through 11 for part 2. At number 20, there's Halo 4. Number 19, there's Far Cry 3. At number 18, Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, the most Japanesey game on here. Next, we have Lost Odyssey, followed by Borderlands 2. Then Naruto, Ultimate Ninja Storm 2, the real best game of the generation. Then we have Infamous 2, Saints Row, For President, Game of the Year Edition, Fallout 3, and finally, at number 11, Ratchet & Clank, A Kraken Time.
And thus ends part 2.
Part 2.
Part 2. So, we will be back in a little bit with part 1.
Indeed. Or 3.
Whatever. Part 3.
You were the one that made the stupid numbering system.
Yeah, I did make the stupid
numbering
system.
All right, I'm Matt. I'm Chris. NOLAnerds. We out.